Hey guys, I'm Simon, and today we're going to talk about EnjoyPBT. We're going to compare the older generation ePBT that was purchasable directly from EnjoyPBT to the newer generation, which many have noticed suffers from a lot of issues, notably quality. We'll get right into that. Now, my first EnjoyPBT set was this SAV set right here that I picked up for a grand total of $65. And it had full 104 key support, wing keyless and standard. And it was a nice little key set. I really enjoyed it, though I wasn't super deep into EnjoyPBT. I preferred BSP. I was on the lookout for OG die subs, trying to find something nice. So for many years, I didn't purchase any EnjoyPBT until 2019. In 2019, this guy named Gawk came out with this really nice EnjoyPBT set called Grayscale. And the beauty of Grayscale is it had an XT function row, which meant that I could put it on my brand new keyboard, my i69. Now, when it arrived, you could say I was a wee bit disappointed. Now, to the untrained eye, it just looks a little bit brighter than the old one, but I noticed a lot of issues with it. And I had learned that these issues are very common amongst most EnjoyPBT sets that are released or at least manufactured recently. Here we are. And before we start off, let's talk about the elephant in the room, most notably warp. Now, this key set is from 2016. As a result, it's been used quite heavily for about 4 years. And we can see there's a little bit of a bend on the spacebar. But the spacebar actuates fine. I don't feel any pressure on the stabilizers in any way I shouldn't. This is a spacebar from 2019, which was not used at all. I put this on a single keyboard and the condition of, or the quality control of the caps was so bad that I put it right back in the box, never to be seen again. Now we look at this one. Yeah, that doesn't look too great. And in addition to this, it has some warp in other axes as well. As a matter of fact, it actually makes contact with the case as it gets pushed down, which is very, very sad to see. Now, this is a known issue with EnjoyPBT sets following the ePBT Slate set by Honeybush. Everything after then, the quality just dropped tremendously, and a lot of people have had issues with it. This means that you would have warped spacebars either in the vertical direction, the horizontal direction, or a combination of both, in addition to bending, which made them nearly unusable, even if you tried to fix them at home. Now, this issue can also present in longer keys, stabilized keys, like the right shift, possibly the enter, and the left shift. We're not going to really talk about that, since measurements may vary depending on who's doing them, but what we're going to cover is the initial impressions that I had when I got this key set. And my impression was that it felt incredibly cheap and incredibly light, as if the caps were thinner. In addition to this, the caps sat up higher, which as a result, if we look at this alt and this alt, allows us to get a glimpse of the switch underneath the keycap, which is quite depressing to see. Whereas with the 2016 set, there's no way you can see the keycap, no matter how hard you try. Now, your viewing angle differs a little bit from mine, but these as a whole sit way lower than these do. And maybe you stylistically like the concept of having your caps raised up high, but it just messes with me, and it messes with the intended design of a lot of custom boards. So as a result, one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to measure the height of each major row, so the number row and the three alphas rows at its highest point, and compare the new generation with the old generation. After this, we're going to do a couple other measurements, but let's start with this one. Now, for the sake of repeatability, I'm going to grab it in the center, so about here. Let me actually zoom you guys in a little bit. All right, this is nice and zeroed. So let's open it up. All right, I'm gonna try and grab it right in the center because obviously these caps have a slope and I want to get the widest point, the highest point essentially. So we start with the recent set, and this sits at 9 millimeters, exactly 9 millimeters. And let's put the OG set in here and grab it the same way. Okay, we see that the OG set, the number row is 0.7 millimeters higher, which again, can be a stylistic decision, but I think this means that there's actually less material in the keycap, which leads to a much cheaper feeling typing experience. Okay, let's move on to the next row. Let's look at the Q, or the top alpha row, and with the Q, the bottom of the keycap is higher than the top of the keycap, so we're gonna measure from there, or pardon, the other way. Let's make sure we got a nice, solid, repeatable grip. Okay, this sits at 7.08 millimeters. And the OG set, put in the same way, actually sits a little bit lower at 7.05. Okay, that's quite interesting. Let's re-zero, and let's grab the center alpha row. Again, try and grab it right in the center there. I'm using the stem here to calculate the middle. All right, so the new EPBT sits at, we'll call it 6.54. And the OG, held the same way, sits at 6.53. Very close, interestingly close. So potentially some of these are fresh molds and some are not. All right, finally the Z key, or the Z key. I'm gonna grab it at its widest point. Right, let's make sure we grab it correctly. There we go. And this is 7.8 millimeters. And the OG, ooh, that's a hell of a difference. 7.78 millimeters. Yep, held in the same spot. Okay, so we can tell there's a little bit of a difference. I think overall, in terms of average height, the older EnjoyPBT are physically larger caps. And right now what we're going to do is actually measure the internal thickness of the walls of the caps. So we're going to start with the grayscale right here. And we're going to grab all these by the top. So top of the keycap over here on this side. They should all be equal. All right, this is, ooh, can we get a 1.4? It should be 1.4. I might have to re-zero. Yep. Oh no, yeah, it's about 1.4, depending on how much, depending on how tight I hold this. So about 1.4. And then the OG set, held in the same place, is also 1.4. Okay. So the thickness is equal, and I believe it's been measured before, and the thicknesses are actually equal, but we're gonna go through all the rows. So we're gonna grab the top alpha row, same spot. Ooh, that is thin. That's 1.3 millimeters. That's re-zero, just, yeah, it was zeroed. Yeah, it's just under 1.3 millimeters. Damn. Let's take a look at the OGQ. Measure it as well. Yeah, this is 1.4. So this is equal to the row above it, whereas on the new set, it's not. Let's take a look at the A on the new set. This sits at about 1.3. I don't think they would make it 1.31. Yeah, there we go, 1.3. And let's look at the OG set. This also sits at 1.3. Interesting. Yeah, they both sit at 1.3. Okay, and then finally the bottom row, the Z, on the new set is about 1.3. And on the OG set is about 1.3. Let's just remeasure the initial top row, the number row. This is the new set. And it sits just over 1.3. And the OG set, which also sits at 1.3. And then the new set top alpha. I think we might need to re-zero that. There we go. It should be 1.3, yeah. And then the OGQ, just over 1.3. Okay, now that we're normalizing, it seems like everything is actually 1.3 with very slight differences between their heights, ever so slight. Nothing that would lead us to believe that one set is objectively better than the other thus far. But now comes the important part, where we measure how high these would actually sit off of a switch. And to do that, we're going to grab a stem. Let's see what we've got here. Here we are. This is looks like a plate mount black. Could be vintage. Yeah, it is. I'm gonna grab this stem right here. Now we essentially want to measure from a repeatable point on the stem, which I believe is going to be this point right here, all the way to the top of the keycap. Let me make sure that I can actually grab that. Yeah, I can grab that just fine. Okay. So we will start with the new set. I'm gonna make sure to firmly grasp it. And let's have ourselves a look. We want something repeatable, so we're gonna grab the switch in the same spot every time. We're gonna tighten as hard as we can. All right, let's see. This sits at 13.41. And let's take a look at the OG set. If I can get the stem out of there. All right, it's in there nice and firm. Let's make sure we get the same grab. And this is 13.46 millimeters. Now, obviously, we're gonna have to do some math to remove the height of the stem, of the switch stem. That's very interesting. Let's actually have a look at the bottom row. That is the most interesting bit out of all of this, because most of the notable differences are noticeable in the bottom row. So let's grab this alt, and we'll grab the alt from the grayscale. Here we are. And we will do the grayscale first. We will measure from the same clamping point as before. It's right here. And go as tight as we can. Okay, so where are we? Yeah, that's good. So 10.45 millimeters. So this sits 10.45 millimeters up, whereas the OG Let's make sure we measure in the same way. So it's 10.79. So there is a difference, but it's ever so slight. I mean, the slight differences are very noticeable when you're looking at a keyboard or typing on a keyboard, but I never realized they were so measurably small. Now, for reference, the amount of height we should be removing from the equation for all of these should be 3.23 millimeters. So we should be, we'll call it 3.24. We should be removing 3.24 millimeters, and that will give us, 3.24. That will give us the height from the very start of the bottom of the stem all the way to the top of the keycap, which again is still not giving us the exact height that it would sit off of the board realistically. For that, we would have to use the top height as well, or the height of the keycap. Okay, so very, very small measurable differences. Now let's look at the final little test that we got. And the final test is, these kind of felt cheap, as if they were a cheaper, lighter quality plastic. And that's relatively easy to measure. We've got a full TKL of switches using the same size caps for everything. What we're going to do is we're going to bundle them all together and just weigh them and see what the total weight of a TKL set ends up being. Because I don't think my scale is accurate enough to measure between keycap to keycap. So we'll start with the new set. Grab all of these that we've already taken out, and we'll just pop the rest off real quick. All right, that was a hell of an exercise. Now to measure all of these guys efficiently, what we're gonna do is grab a little piece of Tupperware so we can put them all in there. Make sure it's zeroed. There we go. The Tupperware is 97 grams. Let's make sure of that. Indeed, it is 97 grams. All right. Let us put all of these keycaps in there. There it is. So it's between 215 and 216 grams. Might be like 215.999. We'll round up, we'll call it 216. Minus the weight of this, which should give you whatever the amount is on the screen. Okie dokie. Let's see how much this one weighs. All right. Let's dump out all these guys. Let's verify this weight is still the same. Indeed, it is. Let's fill it up. Let me re-zero this. This is somehow magically 1 gram lighter now. It is, okay. Well, we're gonna treat this 1 gram lighter. Let me cycle this on and off just to make sure. Like I said, this isn't the most accurate scale. Yeah, it's 1 gram lighter. Must have gotten hot. Interesting. It is pretty much, with the 1 gram lighter thing, it's only 2 or 3 grams heavier for an entire TKL set. All of this blows my mind that, given almost no physical differences, or close to no physical differences of the caps, the actual differences that you notice while using it are like night and day. Like, this feels like very cheap garbage to me, even now that I know that they're the same thickness and the heights average out more or less, and realistically their weight difference is 2 grams over, you know, 84 caps. That's just wild. All right, so what are the differences? Realistically, we've got a 2.5%, 2.6% difference in average cap height, favoring the older EPBT. The actual thickness of the entire cap walls are 1.3 millimeters across the board, although the older set is about 2.5% heavier, which kind of reflects the feeling of cheapness when you type on the newer sets. As for the gap, there is a 10% larger gap in the new sets. So the new sets sit about 10% higher than the older sets do. And this is the visual difference that most people do notice, aside from warping. And then, as I said, the weight is about 2.5% higher. As a whole, this doesn't make new EnjoyPBT difficult to recommend, because measurably it's not much worse, though the actual typing experience and the feeling of the plastic in the hand is remarkably different. It almost feels like it's entirely different plastic coming from entirely different molds made by a completely different company. All right, that's it for the video. Is new EPBT bad? No, it's mostly sad, a little bit bad. It's a shame you really can't get old EPBT anymore, and for the lovely price that it used to be, you know, $60 to $70. Those were the days. So it's a little bit worse, measurably. It's a lot worse in person. It's a very, very sad thing, and that's all I have. Drop a like if you like these kind of videos, if you want me to expose more keyboard things, and drop a sub if you love Simon. Catch me on Twitch.